Gentlemen, welcome in to another edition of Rock Hard Ball. As always, I'm Carter. That's Weezy. You are listening to episode 10 now of Rock Hard Ball. We've made it to double digits here, so another milestone for the show. Got another great show on deck for you. We're going to talk a lot about some of the releases that came out with College Football 25, EA Sports' new college football game that's been kind of all the rage right now, and obviously we're excited for it as well. So we're going to talk about what they've been releasing. We got some NBA news. NBA draft just happened. It wrapped up earlier today. So we're going to talk about kind of the big storylines from there, what went on and stuff like that. Other free agency signings and trades that have gone on in the NBA the last couple of days, as again, the NBA's offseason seems to never sleep. Then we got the NFL, who's in a quiet period of the offseason right now as we get closer and closer to football, but we still got a couple of storylines / news to kind of talk about. And then, of course, as always, we'll wrap things up with our rock hard takes of the day. Presidential debate wrapped up tonight. That was exciting. It was as probably most people expected, kind of a little bit of a shit show for both sides, but we won't spend too much time on that because obviously as that's a big entertainment event, Rock Hard Ball is an even bigger entertainment event. So we thank you all for joining us here post presidential debates. And then a little foreshadowing here, Rock Hard Takes tonight will be somewhat presidential centered. So tune in for that there at the end of the show. But without further ado, I guess let's get into the first topic of tonight. It's the College Football 25 releases. We're going to go over what's been going on there. And the first thing we're going to talk about is they released their toughest places to play. So basically the stadiums in the game that will be quote unquote the hardest to play in for your team on the game. Number 1 is Kyle Field at Texas A&M. Number 2, Bryant-Denny Stadium at Alabama. Number 3 is Tiger Stadium of LSU. Number 4, Ohio Stadium at Ohio State. Number 5, Sanford Stadium at Georgia. Number 6, Beaver Stadium at Penn State. Number 7, Kemp Randall Stadium at Wisconsin. Number 8, Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium at Oklahoma. Number 9, Doak S. Campbell Stadium at Florida State. And number 10 is the Ben Hill Griffin Stadium at Florida. That's the top 10. I won't go into all the other ones. I mean, because it's going to probably take too long to name them all off. Yeah. But, I mean, a couple other notable ones that you'll find in the top 25. Of course, Oregon, Clemson, Tennessee. We got Michigan down there. And then we got like Texas, Michigan State, Notre Dame, to name a few. So, getting to this right away, top hardest places to play. I don't know, Weezy, I guess I'll let you go first here. What do you think of, I guess, the top 10 in general? And then did you see any large omissions from the top 25?
I don't hate it by any means. There's definitely some that stand out. I don't know what you think. I think Camp Randall's awesome. I don't think it's the top 10 toughest place to play. Michigan fan here too. Big House being at 16. That's a fucking joke, but whatever. Toughest place. I mean, it's tough to rank though. Like, again, I don't think A&M's the toughest place by any means. I think that probably goes to LSU. But, I mean, I'm not going to bitch about this one too much.
I think so much of this relies on just, I mean, who teams are playing and, like, what the team is, too. Because, I mean, you just look at the top 10 alone. Every single team in the top 10 has been nationally, like, relevant and a fairly high-level team for, like, the last however many years. The only ones who haven't really been great maybe as of late is like Florida hasn't been super stellar, in the past. Wisconsin's always good, but they're never great. And I agree. Camp Randall, I mean, I went there this past year for the Nebraska game. Yeah, Nebraska maybe wasn't the biggest matchup that they were most excited about, but like jump around's cool. But I mean, that doesn't completely make a stadium experience. As for other ones, I mean, like Penn State, like obviously Beaver Stadium is a very hard place to play in, but it's like on the whiteout, that's easily the toughest place in the nation to play. On a non-whiteout against some random team, I mean, it's just another game. Same with Big House. Speaking of that, you said it's kind of low. The one thing I will say about the Big House is they could probably be helped a lot more by a different stadium design because it's so far just out.
So far, yeah, we were there 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a tough place, because I think the demographic of that stadium typically is like 50% of it's like 65 years and older. It's like, well, they're not going to cheer, they're not going to be rowdy. So it's definitely one of the tamer places. But again, it's like 112,000 people.
Yeah,
I've been in there in huge games, and again, never been to Camp Randall. You cannot tell me going into the Big House though is easier than going into Camp Randall.
Yeah, and then same thing with I know obviously we're in Nebraska, so I see a lot of Nebraska Twitter and stuff like that. A lot of Nebraska fans were upset that Memorial Stadium was left off. But I could see it from a couple of different points. Like for one, kind of like you mentioned with Michigan, a lot of the fan base is older. So it's like they're just not going to be super rowdy during the games. Another thing that's really holds Nebraska back is the student section placement. Student section placement in Nebraska is terrible. The student section is like the farthest place away from the field. They put them back in a corner and it goes way up. It's like you don't really give the students a chance to get into the game. Also, the tunnel walk could definitely use a revamp a little bit, I think. There's definitely some more excitement that could be added there, and just stadium experience in general. And again, a lot of people talked about this on Twitter already, so I'm not kind of repeating things that I've seen and stuff like that, but also my own personal opinion. So definitely some things that Nebraska could work on to maybe get into that category. I think there's definitely an argument to be made that they could be in the top 25. But I mean, at the end of the day, they just weren't. And I kind of get it for some of the reasons that we just listed. Next thing that we're going to talk about with the college football releases are the sights and sounds that they released. These were super cool. I really liked what they did with that. They released a whole trailer, like Kirk Herbstreit was, voicing it. They had some Chris Fowler clips in there too, of course. But that looks super awesome too. I mean, the amount of detail that they put in with like doing the little suits and stuff with the guys and like having them run down false hills and stuff like that was super cool.
Yeah, and doing it for every school is impressive. I mean, obviously we've been waiting for this game for 10 years now, but yeah, it's really, I think, important that they're showing like so much like detail for every single school included and not just copying out and doing like the big name schools.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they also said too, I mean, the amount of detail that they put into getting actual crowd noise and things like that. I mean, that's a big deal too. They're using actual crowd noise that's like recorded from games. They're using the actual like chants of in stadium of those fans, those student sections, whatever, doing their chants, and they're implementing in the game. I think that's really cool. So they got off to a very hot start there with releases because those things came out on Tuesday and Wednesday. Where things got a little bit hairy for College Football 25 is today, right? It was today, yeah.
Yep.
When they started releasing the offensive and defensive power rankings or ratings, whatever they called them, for the top offenses and top defenses in the game. So there's a lot of controversy. We're going to do a little bit. We got graphics made up here for the top 10. Then we'll also talk about some of the other ones in the top 25 that are definitely worth noting. So let's start with the defenses. We got the top 10 up here. So obviously you can see there, number 1 is Ohio State, 96 overall. Number 2, Georgia, 94 overall. Number 3, Oregon, 90. 4, Alabama, 90. 5, Clemson, 90. 6, Notre Dame, 90. 7, Michigan, 90. 8, Texas, 88. 9, Penn State, 88. 10, Utah, 88. So we right away here, top 10, what kind of jumps off the page at you and kind of catches your attention here in the top 10 for the top defenses?
Yeah, there's 3 different things. One, Ohio State is not like that far ahead of every other team in terms of defense. Again, we talked about it so many times. Talented roster. Again, haven't seen it through. I don't know how much that's going to impact that. Clemson, too high, I think. And then Michigan, way too low. I mean, they were the number 1 defense in the country last year. They obviously lose a few key players, but who they're returning means more. So I think Michigan slate in that 7 is just truly disrespectful.
Yeah, I agree. Most of the ranking here, as you kind of just stated, I guess, is fairly agreeable. I mean, obviously, a lot of these teams are going to be the top teams in the country, so it makes sense. Also, I mean, and we'll talk about it with offense too. Like a lot of this rating stuff, I feel like is so much of the game just trying to like, I mean, it's almost too player dependent to a point because obviously, like a lot of these teams are just going to have big stars, and that's going to drive ratings because obviously a team rating is just the average of all the players. I would assume is how they're doing it. So there's definitely ones where it's not going to make sense. Speaking of an outlier that doesn't make sense as we kind of look down the rest of the top 25, you got some of your typical just, good teams and then also your typical good defenses. We got, Florida State down there, Oklahoma, and then we got like Iowa, obviously, always has a good defense. Wisconsin, always a good defense. 2 huge ones that jump off the page right away at me, though, that are just like, how in the hell are these teams on the top 25? USC and Colorado. Why on earth are either of these two teams making appearances in the top 25 defense?
Dude, they have USC's defense better than their offense. In what goddamn world?
Yeah. The USC is sitting at an 86 overall, 16th overall. Colorado sitting at an 84 overall, 20th overall. How on earth? Yeah, it just, again, I don't understand what the game makers think when they try to do this. Like, again, I think with Colorado, it's mostly driven by like just a couple big stars, namely, Travis Hunter, who's probably going to be 97, 98, 99, something like that in the game.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that kind of drives the rating, but it's like they were one of the worst defenses in the country last year. I mean, they won 4 games, and that was completely on the back of their offense.
They were going up like 40 points at Colorado State.
Yeah.
And it's not like they like brought in like 8 miracle workers. They didn't. So
No.
like, how the hell do you justify that?
I don't get it. Same with like USC. They had Caleb Williams last year, the prodigal son of the NFL, who was expected to come in and be a top 12, borderline top 10 quarterback right away, and an offense that was very good around him. They won 7 games, and it was all year blamed due to their defense. Who the hell did they bring in? Like, did they completely replace the roster? I don't think so. So why on earth is USC slotting at 86 overall? I don't get it. But I don't know. I guess that's kind of that for the defenses. Also, like Ohio State too, like you said, I don't think they're that much better than everybody else. But at the same time, it's like I feel like people are probably thinking that Ohio State's going to be very balanced on both sides of the ball. So as we move into offense here, and we'll throw that up on the screen here, Ohio State's offense is an 89, but their defense is 96. That doesn't seem right to me. Like there shouldn't be a 7 overall difference between the two. But as you look over that list there, Georgia and Oregon in the top 2 there at 94 overalls, Alabama, Texas coming in at 91s. Then you got Ohio State, LSU, Miami, Colorado, Missouri, all at 89s. And then Clemson rounding out the top 10 at 87 overall. So once again, Weez, I'll throw it back to you. What are you thinking here? First of all, with the top 10, and we'll kind of get past the top 10 into the top 25 a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to jump right back to Ohio State because, like you said it, that's just a good roster. It's a 94-94 team. There's not a 7, you know. And then we're going to go right back to Colorado. Colorado has 2 good players on that offense. I don't know what they're like. What do you think Shedeur is going to be rated?
I'm sure he'll be very, very high. I don't know what they're going to like kind of max out players with. I'm assuming they'll put some 99s in the game. Shedeur, I would assume, will be a top 3 rated quarterback. I mean, yes, it'll be him, Quinn Ewers, and Carson Beck probably as the top 3 rated quarterbacks.
I would not be shocked if EA puts him as 1 or 2.
Really?
No. I think it's like almost like a clickbaity thing.
Yeah.
But no, so Colorado's that high. What do they do against like good teams? Not much. Like again, no reason for them to be the 8th best offense in this game. And then going right back at it, like Miami at an 89, like that is solely off predictions. Like, yeah, Cam Ward goes to Miami. Like on paper, that offense should be fun, but like I hate when they do this. Okay, that's why I think Madden actually kind of does it a little bit better. Like we don't know what some of these teams are going to be like. We know what teams did last year, and we know what they're bringing back. So why are we not rating it off that? Like again, I get Michigan lost, you know, their quarterback and running back.
They're not even the top.
Why 25. Are they not in the top 25? Because you're gonna have Colorado at 20 and 8, and Michigan at 7 solely on defense. Am I gonna open up the game week 1 and you're gonna tell me a 4 win in the Pac-12 Colorado team is a better team than the defending national champions?
Well, yeah, that's and then
if so, it's like, what the hell are we even doing?
If you assume too that the total team overalls are going to be averaged based on like the offense and the defense, which obviously that would be a normal person thinks. The 25th place team on offense, also kind of back to like these two are kind of going hand in hand today. USC also 3 overall lower on offense than they are on defense.
Yeah. In what world is that defense better than their offense?
No, never. But that being said, it's like if you average the 2, so Colorado is an 84 on defense and they're in 89 on offense. So you average those 2 out, that's an 86.5 overall. So they'll be 86, 88, I mean 86, 87. And then you look at Michigan, they're 90 on defense, but that means that they're lower than an 83 on offense. So you're telling me that Colorado's going to have a higher overall rating than Michigan is in the game.
It's a joke.
It makes no sense at all. I mean, we just did our college football playoff predictions last episode back on Monday. So if you missed that, go check that out. But I mean, we both had Michigan, at 8, I think?
We had 8.
Yeah. So we both had Michigan at 8.
We also, though, had them as like, that's like what we think they will be. But like, we both clearly know, like, if they're like, that roster's like deep too. And that whole team is like, they could go in and, you know, be the best team in the country again. What makes me think Colorado's going to maybe be the best? It's ridiculous how that works.
Well, I mean, we look at Nebraska's schedule. Again, a team that went 5-7 last year. They brought back a lot. But still, it's like we think Nebraska is going to be a good team this year. Nothing special, though. We think they're going to go like maybe 8-4. But we look at their schedule and we're like, oh, man, their first 7 games are pretty like light. They should go 7-0 in that first 7. You know who's in that first 7? Colorado. So why the hell are they on both these lists? One of them being in the top 10. And then like Nebraska, you look at them, again, maybe you'll think it's a little bit of a homer take, but I don't think it's crazy. They were the, I think, 13th best defense in the country last year, and they are nowhere to be found in the top 25. They lost nearly nobody from the defense of last year. And then obviously, I mean, things change a little bit here and there, but the corner room might not be stellar. But why are they not in the top 25 when we find Colorado in the top 25? I don't get it. One of these Husker accounts posted a Husker Wave on Twitter. LSU last year was the 82nd best defense in the country. They're 18th in the game. Auburn's 43rd. They're 17th. USC was the 121st best defense in the country last year. They're 16th. Colorado was 124th. They're 20th. And then, like I just said, Nebraska was 13th. They're not ranked, which I get it. Some of those teams played harder schedules last year, things like that. And yeah, maybe put some stock into transfers coming over. But again, at the end of the day, I don't see it. I don't think it's a homer take at all.
No, it's not. And like, I get like coming from like an EA standpoint too, like you don't want too much like spread going on within it. But like, let's pull up. Obviously, the people in the stream can't see like the complete top 25, only top 10 here. But like, so in the top 25 of offenses, 12 Penn State at an 87 overall, and then Ole Miss at 13 with an 87 overall. In what world is Penn State and Ole Miss on the same playing field for offenses?
Yeah,
It's a joke. Like Ole Miss is like viewed as a potential title contender. And I'll tell you right now,
is a Heisman
it's
dark
not
horse.
because it's their goddamn defense. It's because that offense will be awesome this year.
And Penn State, on the flip side, is seen as a team that has a really good roster and a light schedule with a quarterback that you can't trust. So that's why they are not
Michigan did not throw the ball last year in the second half because they just looked at that Penn State offense and said, do something. And they couldn't. So it's so confusing.
Yeah. So again, really excited for the game to come out. Don't get me wrong, but again, they hit it out of the park the first 2 days. The top 10 places to play I thought were pretty fair. Got some people talking a little bit, and obviously that was probably the smallest drop. Like people were probably least interested in that, honestly, to be just completely honest. And then the sights and sounds again hit it out of the park. I think that a lot of people really, really enjoyed that. And then finally, obviously we get to the ratings, and then we get this. Tomorrow, though, we are going to get the full like power rankings of the best teams by overall. So I guess we'll see. Maybe it's not going to be a true average. Maybe there's some way that they're going to balance it out. Like Iowa special teams will be 98 overall, so they'll be higher. But I mean, again, we're just going to see how it plays out in terms of what they end up doing with the just overall rankings. But as of right now, I won't lie, I'm kind of disappointed in the offensive and defensive rankings. I get the game hasn't come out yet, and they have said they're going to adjust it as they go, like they do with Madden. But at the same time, I just don't think this is a great place to start with the ratings. So also really quick shout outs. We got a good team of writers at cultureballdawgs.com working on these articles as they come out, as EA does this drops and doing some deep dives and stuff like that on them. So go check out cultureballdawgs.com if you want to see them kind of break it down a little bit more in depth as well. And then Dogs, of course, DAWGS in the College Ball Dogs. So make sure you check those out as well. But we'll move on from that from now. Obviously on Monday we'll be back, so we'll probably talk about the full whatever power rankings and stuff like that they drop, and if they end up coming out with any more stuff, we'll get into all that good stuff as well. But that being said, let's move on here. We'll get into the NBA. The NBA draft happened. Won't lie, we were kind of, I would say, probably NBA draft bad class, but surprisingly ended up being some decent storylines that came out of the draft that we probably weren't super aware of, and obviously some of them just had to happen as the draft goes. First things first, though, we're at the top of the draft. Something that was really, really curious that happened. Alex Sarr, who was by most people's account seen as the best prospect in the draft, forced himself to go to the Wizards at number 2 rather than the Hawks at number 1. He refused to work out for them. I didn't even realize that was really going on leading up to the draft, because I'm not going to lie, I wasn't very invested. So, I mean, let's start there. I mean, crazy storyline. The Hawks are set up pretty well.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic for sure. First thing that jumps out is, again, like I was seeing mixed opinions on this. Like people are like, oh, well, the Hawks are a weird spot. Like, can you really go there and develop right away? While like the Wizards, bad team, not like an awful supporting cast, but you kind of go in there. It's like, well, like if I'm a first overall pick, like why do I want to go to a team? Like I'm in a good spot where I can go first overall still, and then I can go to a team where it's like they've been in the play-in. I come in, I play well, like like we can maybe make a little run. Obviously, not.
They made an Eastern Conference Finals run 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, so I'm very confused. Maybe he doesn't like the management, the coaching, the player. I don't know what it is, but weird situation coming out of that. And also, like, I'm trying to think, like, what was the last? Obviously, Caleb Williams. Like, there was a lot of shit going on with him, talking about like, oh, like he doesn't want to go to Chicago. Like, he'll just like stay USC for a year, which everybody knew that was bullshit. But like, when was the last time like we truly saw like a guy who was probably going to go 1-1 just say, I'm not working out for you guys. Like, you guys can take me, but I don't want to be here.
Yeah, especially in the NBA. Like, I feel like we've never seen the NBA.
No.
And it's that was one kind of wild thing, because like I think it was Ari Myrov tweeted, he was like, he forced himself down. He was like, it's crazy like that can happen in the NBA. You never see that in the NFL. I think it's completely backwards. I think we have seen it in the NFL. Eli Manning did it. Yeah. Somebody else that did. Elway did it. I mean, they just said, I'm not going to play for you. So either trade me or I'm just not going to play. I honestly don't remember a time we were seeing in the NBA where somebody just straight up forced themselves to go somewhere else. And it's honestly more wild too to like kind of have like the audacity to do that in a class that's not that good. Like if you were in last year's class, like you would have gone I don't know, maybe top 5. So I don't really know how we would have stacked up to last year's. But there's a lot of draft classes where you wouldn't have even been, top 3, top 5. So it's like, to be like, oh, okay, I'm just in a really shitty draft class, so I'm just gonna act like, I run this shit. I don't know. I think it's pretty crazy to do, especially like we both said, the Hawks are a good situation. Like you're gonna go in, you're gonna get minutes, but at the same time, you're gonna play with a good team. So I don't understand why you want to do it.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Again, it has to be something upper level management wise, but it doesn't make sense. But he obviously falls to 2. I cannot pronounce the guy's name. Who went number 1?
I think like Zach Ryshar
Yeah,
or
which
Rashir or
again,
something.
another one where people are really questioning that pick, which like again shows you how bad this draft class was. He doesn't have a high floor, have a high ceiling. They say his floor is pretty bad. So him going 1-1, I don't like it, but
yeah, and I think that was the thing was like I'm pretty sure what the thought process was there is that neither of those guys were super polished and could end up, having very big bust potential, but Sarr had the way higher ceiling.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's why he was, by most people's account, the number 1 pick. And then it's like, still with the Hawks, like you could have used maybe a Donovan Cleaning. Like there was talks that they'd be interested in him. At least, he's a proven guy that's going to at least be like a solid, rotational piece at the very least, I would think. So yeah, questionable pick. And then also just a questionable kind of way to handle the whole thing. And Alex Sarr just doing that to begin with was probably the weirdest thing of all. But moving on into the draft, Zach Edey, who was, mocked and made fun of forever about his NBA potential and where he'd actually end up going in the draft. He went from last year, if he would have declared he might have gone undrafted, maybe second round, to end of this year.
They had him like late first round.
They had him like late first round. Then as the draft got closer, they're like, you know what? He maybe is like slipping right at the end of the lottery. He goes 9 to Memphis.
Yeah, shocking. Memphis said they need a big man. They liked him. Again, I don't see where he fits in the NBA play style. Again, I think if anybody likes, pick and rolls, switch situation, an athletic guard pulls him out, it's going to be toast. He's got no outside game. And I'm curious to see like what the whistle's like. Also in college, like there's not as much like top tier teams will have like obviously in the championship, Klingon, 7'3" built guy, great matchup for them too. But like your day to day Big Ten play, like you're not going to have a big man that matches up with Edey. Well, like the NBA, there is going to be one. And then not only that, it's like we saw how bad Edey was at like when he has to stretch the floor. Like when he can sit in that paint and like move around down low and like, be a force around the rim, great player. But NBA, it's like your typical 1 through 5 are going to be able to shoot. And when Edey has to go out, he's going to be on an island. And I don't like his play defensively. So I'm really curious to see how he translate. I don't think it's going to go well though.
Yeah, it's the NBA just in general is just a really weird thing because it's like the NFL. I mean, top half of the draft, like you're drafting a guy, and it's like this guy is going to be, close to a day 1 starter, and if he's not a day 1 starter, he's going to at least like rotate, and he's eventually going to be like a big player for the franchise. NBA, it's like in most drafts, this one's like no picks, but it's like most drafts, once you get past like the top 2 or 3, it's like, is this guy like going to be on our team in like 3 or 5 years? Like we don't really know, and so it's just kind of crazy. Like whereas I guess maybe with Edey, Memphis thought of him as more of like a guaranteed somewhat high floor, but like
a
he's just not going to
maybe.
Yeah, like it's like they're like just best case scenario, like he'll be like a really good rim protector and can get his here and there down in the paint and maybe be like a serviceable ish starter someday. But it's like I feel like for the most part too, it's just kind of like let's just draft him and like he can just be a good rotational piece to come in and just stand in the paint once in a while. So
weird,
interesting. Now moving to a guy who rather than went higher than most people thought, a guy who fell, somebody who was supposed to be a lot of people thought really even a top 10, maybe even borderline top 5. And then I think most people thought at the least he'd go by the end of the lottery. Dalton Connect falls all the way to the Lakers at, what was it, 17? Yeah. So I think that's a really good get for the Lakers. Good shooter, good offensive player, another guy to plug and play with LeBron. I don't know. What do you think of the pick?
I could not be an NBA scout for any means. Cause again, they kept bringing it up on the broadcast last night that like, oh, these guys don't want to draft a 23-year-old. They want to draft 18-year-old, which again, I feel like it's hurt a lot of teams. Like I get that gives you a lot of like years to, try to develop these guys. But like in the past 2 years, how many guys have come in from the G League at 18 and have just been bad?
Yeah.
Like the Thompson twins last year, not good, couldn't shoot, were not ready for the NBA. It's like, here's a 23-year-old, won SEC Player of the Year. Was like, and also to me, like we both know NBA and college game styles are so much different on every level. And this is where I could be wrong. Like to me, what stands out in a college basketball player is, okay, I can give him the ball, space out, and like he's going to get his. And like we don't really have to run like a fake set offense. Like these guys are talented enough. Mm-hmm. And like I'm thinking of other guys You have Pablo Banchero, who I felt like give him the ball, clear out, let him, provide for himself. In this draft class, there's not anybody like that to me except Don't Connect, where it's like, okay, I'm down 6 with 4 minutes left. Okay, well, I want the ball in his hands and I'm going to let him do whatever the hell he wants to. Like, how does that go 17?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit if he's 23. That's a guy who the Lakers, which is why this pick is even a bigger, like, knock out of the park. That's a guy you're going to plug. He's going to start day one, and he's going to be a huge piece for them day one. It's not like they don't want an 18-year-old kid who's a project. LeBron's 40. Mm-hmm. He's getting old. Like, that guy's going to step in and be an immediate, factor for him. I don't get how he goes 17. But.
Yeah, it's a huge pick for the Lakers. I think I've seen like multiple people whatever grade the first round of the draft, and a lot of people have him as like the only A+ pick. I mean, a guy who fell like 10 spots lower than a lot of mock drafts had him. I mean, doesn't matter how good the draft class is, what league you're playing in, that's a good pick. So big hit for the Lakers.
And people like bitch too about these guys who like do like in college create for themselves because you don't see many guys who do that. And then like, oh, they're like inefficient. The guy shot 40% from 3 last year. It's like at his worst, he's going to be a huge piece for the Lakers because they need shooters. It's the best pick of the night.
Yeah, mind blowing. Moving on here, as we get kind of down the draft here, early second round pick, a guy who fell, and now people are all of a sudden finding out the very, very odd reason why. Kyle, how do you even say his last name?
Filipowski.
I always go back for it. Let's just say Flip, because I think that's what everybody calls him. So he ends up falling to like early second round. Again, another guy who was mocked to go like mid, late first round ends up falling to early second. Weird stories coming out now with his like girlfriend, who's apparently like between the ages of 26 and 28, who used to be his babysitter, and they like now he like has no contact with his family and stuff like that. Really weird story. I don't know.
Like he's a converted Mormon now.
Yeah, it's very interesting enough. He gets drafted to Utah.
I mean, he got groomed.
Yeah, it's like a crazy story that like seems to actually have some legitness to it. Like they said, like she was like 23 going to his high school prom with him, and again, like
I think she was 24.
Okay,
which if you're 24 going to high school prom, you should probably like be behind bars.
Yeah, it's just a crazy thought process in general that like that happened or was allowed to happen. Stuff like that. I don't really get how. I don't know, the parents let that happen. Like obviously, as we just said, apparently, like I think it was his brother said like he's like cut off from the family.
His brother and his mom on Twitter, and his brother like subtweeted somebody saying like, if I want to contact my brother, the only way I possibly can is to like Instagram DMs. Like nobody else knows how to get in touch with this guy.
Yeah, it's
just got engaged, right?
Maybe I don't see that, but yeah, apparently people think that like he might have been following the draft because of that, because like now like teams are like his girlfriend like has this like tight, or fiance, whatever she is, has this tight of a grip on him. Like how can like we just like trust him to like be like a player for our franchise? Story. I mean, I don't know. We're not going to get too in depth with it because obviously a lot of it's just rumor and hearsay. But needless to say, from what I've heard, it sounds like it's got at least a little bit of truth to it. So just a really wild story that we haven't seen in a long time. I don't know if we've ever seen something like that. So really, really crazy. Finally, last NBA draft story. And then once we get through that, we'll go to a break, and then we'll come back with a little bit more NBA news and NFL news and Rock Hard Takes to wrap things up. But last thing here before we go, the big story, the one that everybody's been talking about and waiting for, Bronny James has been officially drafted to the Los Angeles Lakers. He and LeBron will be the first ever father and son duo to play in the NBA. They're already the highest scoring father and son duo in NBA history. So that's pretty cool. But he went 55 overall. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like this was going to happen. Yeah. I mean, we all knew it was coming. They took a late second round pick on him. How many second round picks do we see end up being any good in the NBA? I mean, it's like Jokic is like the ultimate outlier. I mean, Draymond's been good. He was a second rounder, but it's like second rounders aren't very good. I get why the Lakers took him, keep LeBron happy, but at the same time, Bronny's not awful. He's not a terrible player. People always like to talk about his stats at USC. Kid went into like cardiac arrest last summer, and he got back on the court.
Also, it's like, yeah, he's not NBA ready, but like his dad doesn't have much time left in the NBA, and he wants to play with his son. Like, yeah, if his dad was not LeBron James, he would have not declared. He was a freshman getting minutes at USC. He would have played maybe 4 years. We don't know what he would look like as a college senior. It's like the hate's too real, but like to be fair, a lot of it comes on them too. Like the story, Rich Paul contacting every other
that was
NBA
wild. I
team,
want to get to that.
Except the Lakers and Suns, saying if you draft Bronny, he's going to go play in Australia. It's like, well, hey, Rich, nobody was going to draft him.
Yeah, that was a really wild story that came out because, like you just said, So it's like, why do they even float that out there? Like, just keep that to yourself. Like, no one cares. If they really were doing that, I don't know why they were, but there's like a 95% chance that never even happened. Like, they're definitely just like trying to create some steam, being like, other teams were going to take him. Like, he is a good enough player that other teams were going to take him. And you never know. Maybe some team would have taken a flyer on him. I mean, he's still an athletic, guard. He can play good defense. He's got really good IQ, obviously. And he can shoot the ball a little bit. But still, it's like no one was going to take him.
It was funny, though, because Boston picked 54. So everyone was like,
oh, yeah.
Can you imagine Boston takes me like, all right, Bron, send us to Australia.
Yeah, no, I saw the one there was like, it's like, could you imagine their arch nemesis, takes Bronny, one pick in front of them, and it's like, we're holding your son hostage, LeBron, send us Austin Reeves, or he's going to Australia. It's like, that would have been just a wild story to look into as well. But I mean, shout out, it is really cool. Our great and glorious king gets his prince. But I mean, it is crazy that LeBron's playing with his son. More, this is honestly a LeBron story than a Bronny story. I mean, shout out Bronny. Yeah, I mean, he's a talented player for his age, stuff like that. But it's crazy that he played long enough to play with his son. The pictures of like him back in like the first Cleveland stint, and like even like the Miami championship, he's like holding up like a whatever 4-year-old Bronny, whatever he is, probably not that young, but 5-6-year-old Bronny. Like, it's wild that he's like not even that much worse than he was in that picture, like LeBron. And now his son is on his team.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But okay, but is he going to be on the team this year? Or I have to.
I don't know.
I would have to imagine he's this year, right?
Huh? I mean, you would think, but
Or
at the same time, it's like do you just be like, you know what? How many 15th guys on the bench really ever matter to the team? I wouldn't be surprised if they just throw him on there.
Yeah. And then obviously the memes that came out of it, it's like, is he going to call him dad?
Yeah.
Dad, scream.
Yeah, or it's like he comes home. It's like Savannah's like, hey son, how'd the game go tonight? It's going good till dad started chucking threes. It's like, it is a really funny dynamic to like think about from that standpoint. But again, shout out. I mean, it's pretty cool that they made it. And they kind of made it work or whatever. But again, I think that there's a lot of people out there too, like NBA draft scouts that said like, yeah, he's not even close to ready yet, and like we wouldn't pick him. But those same scouts did say like, give him one more year at USC, we wouldn't be surprised if he ended up being like a first round draft.
His biggest fault to him was probably just he's 6'1".
Yeah, he's kind of small, and he's not like an elite shooter. Not
like I'd argue if his like if with his skill set at 6'5", like I definitely could have seen like that would have been tricky.
Yeah,
I bet you teams would have wanted him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's incredibly athletic. He's just undersized. He's a great shooter. And then again, you mentioned it.
It's ridiculous instincts.
He's not great, providing his own shot, but not many players are coming into the league. So,
yeah, interesting story and cool story. So fun to watch. But with that, we're a little over halfway through the episode, so we're going to go to a quick commercial. Once again, a reminder, you're listening to Rock Hard Ball, part of the Dogs Media Network here at Culture Ball Dogs, and we will be right back.
On the College Football Dogs website, you'll find a main page that features some of our biggest and newest stories. Our conference pages for content related to your favorite team's conference. Our team store, where we have products that are available all year long, as well as gear available for a limited time only. Our podcast page, where you can see when one of the 12-plus College Football Dogs podcasts is streaming live on social media. Our subscription page, where you can join our Discord. If you're interested in becoming a contributor at College Football Dogs, email us at info@collegefootballdogs.com. If you enjoy any College Football Dogs content, we really do appreciate any donations you can make by visiting the donate page on our website or scanning the QR code here.
College Football Dogs, for the fans.
Alrighty, and we are back. Again, listening to Rock Hard Ball, part of the Dogs Media Network here at Culture Ball Dogs. Just wrapped up with some NBA draft talk, and now we're going to get into some NBA free agency and trade news before we move on to some of our other sports to wrap things up. But first things first, we got Mikal Bridges has been traded to the Knicks, which are now basically just the Villanova Wildcats. He was traded for, let me pull it up here. I had it a second ago, but it was a crazy haul. I think it's like 4 unprotected firsts, or maybe 5.
I think it's 5.
Let's see, 4 unprotected first round picks, a protected first round pick, an unprotected pick swap, and then a second rounder. So pretty crazy haul.
Potentially 6 firsts in a second.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, technically, a pick swap I think is within the first round no matter what, but it's like if somehow, shit goes haywire with the Knicks and the Nets end up being like decent, it's like that could end up being whatever, a 17th overall pick to a 4 overall pick if they get like lucky in the lottery. It could end up being big. And don't get me wrong, like I just said, Mikal Bridges is a very good player. He's Mr. Consistency. He's played like all 82 games like every year of his career or close to it, something like that.
I think he played 83 this year.
Yeah, it was either this year or last year. Yeah, whenever he got traded,
he played 80.
I think it was last year. Yeah, he played 83. So ridiculous, like just pillar of consistency and a very solid player. He'd probably be like a really good like 3 on like a championship team. I'd say
he's just not worth 6.
But he's not. Yeah, he's not worth that much. But again, in the NBA, it's so different. It's so hard to like value trades in the NBA because again, we just talked about the draft. The draft is just so shoddy all the time, and then that just comboed with the fact that it seems like teams just, I guess, kind of goes hand in hand with the fact, but teams just don't care about the draft picks. I mean, hell, the Clippers gave up how many picks forever to the Thunder?
Yeah, they don't have,
and then the Thunder just stockpiled them forever.
The Thunder have like their top selection of 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders. It's crazy.
Yeah. It is nuts. So really big haul for him, but I don't know. I guess they reunite the guys. So
speaking of trades and stuff too, we forgot to hit on this in the draft too, which I think is big. Don't quite know what the hell the Spurs were doing because they had 4. They picked Castle out of UConn. I like him a lot, great player. And then they have 8-2, and they pick Rob Dillingham, who's a great young player for Kentucky, and then they ship him off to Minnesota, which for Minnesota it's an unreal play, given the fact
ultimate aura backcourt has been assembled. And
but they give away Rob Dillingham, who I really like, for a 2nd in 2031 and a 1st in 2033, maybe.
Yeah.
It's like, that guy can impact your team now. Like,
yeah.
What are we trading him for a 13-year-old kid right now?
Well, yeah, you think about how big that pick's gonna be 9 years though, Weez. It's gonna be big time. It could really change the face of the franchise.
I just don't get it.
Yeah, I don't understand how they're even like allowed to trade picks out that far.
No, it's a damn near fucking decade.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Oh, I think OKC, like in some of the past trades, still have like they have picks in like the 2030s that they've picked up. And it's like those trades happened like a couple years ago.
Yeah, and that's when all the memes came out. It's like, well, OKC is going to get their top picks for the 6th grade class this year. It's crazy. It's like it's the only league too where you're like, shit, even like in any other league, 3 years in advance is deemed like pretty far ahead. And this is like 8 years, 9 years. What are we doing?
Yeah, I don't get it at all. And then it's like, I guess the one argument maybe you can make is like they'll turn around and use those as trade pieces, but then it's like at the same time, those trade pieces that you have, those picks, why on earth is somebody else going to want them? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like the whole league could really just come together and be like, hey guys, let's stop sending picks that are 10 years away. Like, let's just trade with the stuff that we have in the.
So what's worth more, a 2nd next year or a 1st in 9 years?
I have no idea. Again,
I would argue it would be a 2nd next year because you know where you're probably going to be next year. OKC doesn't know where the hell they're going to be in 9 years. Minnesota doesn't know where the hell they're going to be in 9 years. So it's like, what are you projecting there?
Yeah, it's a really just puzzling, I don't know, concept in the NBA. But as we were saying, though, Villanova Wildcats basically have been reunited. Now all they need is Chris Jenkins to get in there. Or not Chris Jenkins. Who am I thinking of? Eric Pascal, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, he was on that team.
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, he had to have been.
I thought he might have been like the year later.
He was the one that was like, everybody was like the next Draymond, right?
Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah.
Because he was also really good.
Jenkins was way older.
Because Pascal was also really good with the Warriors during COVID.
And because that's what people were like, he's the next Draymond. And then they're like, where's he at now? And but apparently he's overseas because basically he was just behind Draymond. So like there's no need for him because he's basically the same player, but just worse.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the Villanova Wildcats have been reunited in New York. So I guess next thing they got to do is get Coach out of retirement, get him out of the studio, get him in there, and go lead the team. But yeah, big trade there because obviously that's another just really, really good piece to add to the Knicks. Again, yeah, he's not a superstar, but like he's a star. He's a like borderline all-star. So definitely worth noting as a pickup there for the Knicks. Another just kind of thing to mention, Bam Adebayo. I don't know if he's technically signed it yet, but he's like on the verge of signing one.
Expected to sign the
Yeah, intend to reach a 3-year, $166 million maximum contract extension with the Heat that would keep him there through 28-29, which again makes sense. Like the tweet says from Shams, he's a cornerstone center, consistent all-star, all defense, all NBA player. So good job by the Heat locking him down. OG Anunoby signs a 5-year, $212.5 million extension. Feels like we talked about it a lot here on the show the past couple of weeks with all these extensions coming out. NBA money just continues to be absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It's OG Anunoby is going to make $250 million over 5 years.
It is just absolutely. It's even more crazy to think about too, like how much it's escalated like the last few years. Because like what was it just 3 or 4 years ago where Steph signed like a five-year like $220 $220 or $250 million contract. It's like, yeah, that's still more than what this is, but not that much compared to like just a couple years for at the time, and even still now, like a top 5, top 10 player in the NBA. OG Anunoby is what, top 50? I don't know.
Like maybe 50.
It's like
maybe 75, maybe 100.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you think there's 30 teams in the NBA, he would never ever be the best player on our team, and there's not many teams that he'd be the second best player on.
No.
So
unless
it's like,
that team's really
so yeah, he's
bad.
probably like top 60, top 75. Yeah, and he's getting that much money. It's crazy.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I really wish that I was 6'9" and super athletic, because man, being in the NBA would have been awesome. But other guys that are looking at deals, let's actually kind of move to the Nuggets, I guess, really in general. They've got some things going on. So Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has been an important piece for them here for the past couple of years that they've been in championship contention, has declined his player option with the Nuggets, but he's expected to still possibly be coming back on a different deal. They just which opened up over $5 million in cap space. So possibly trying to get him back. And then they're also working on a max extension with Jamal Murray, which that will obviously cause them to shell out a lot of money. That's expected to be a 4-year, $209 million maximum contract extension this offseason. So we'll see. I don't think that one's officially done yet either. But again, kind of same thing with the Adebayo contract. Like, it's not going to not get done. It's just, technically isn't done yet. So Denver, of course, trying to keep that core together, make more pushes for championship. Obviously, their window is wide open now, so they're going to do everything that they can to keep making that push. So I guess just kind of a little update there. I don't think there's really much to, analyze. So moving on, though, into the NFL, we have the NFL Sunday Ticket lawsuit that's been going on. So what's going on there is obviously, for whoever anybody doesn't know, there's a class action lawsuit, like an antitrust trial against the NFL with its Sunday Ticket package. They've just been ordered to pay out to fans $4.7 billion in damages, plus like another like 900 million something to like bars and stuff like that like would have the package. And with antitrust cases, that can also triple. So the actual number will end up being 14 billion. That could possibly end up being like thousands of dollars per household paid out. So really wild story in the NFL. It's kind of been going on for a little while, but that's kind of the first time the nail's been really hit. But the kind of general thought is that the NFL will definitely appeal it, and it'll probably get somewhat adjusted. Like, they're not going to actually end up paying out thousands of dollars to anybody who had Sunday Ticket. But just kind of a wild story that can happen.
Still confused how it works, but
I think the goal here and in this whole trial, and hopefully will be the goal in all the major leagues eventually, will be that they can't do the blackout shit, and they have to like offer like individual packages. Like, they can't just make people pay hundreds of dollars to say that, oh, you get to watch every team in the league. Though a lot of people don't want that. They just want a package where they can watch every single one of their team's games, and then just be done with it. And then again, same thing. The blackouts are just they're awful. In baseball specifically is the one that gets a lot of hate for it. But the NFL too. It's fucking terrible.
It's egregious.
At least with the NFL, there's only so many games like per week, and like there's a lot of different time slots. So a lot of the times, even if your team's blacked out, there's a especially if you're rooting for a good team, that they're going to be on national television anyways. So it's like not really going to matter. But it is really just a shitty situation that you just can't watch your team play a lot of times. It's like it's such an ancient rule. Like, I get back in the days of cable, like why they did it. They blacked it out because they wanted people to go to the games. And it used to be a smaller area, but like now it's like they black out. Like I grew up in North Dakota. Like, why on earth is like, I mean, I wasn't a Vikings fan, but it's like the Vikings played in Minneapolis. That's 10 hours away. They'd black out games like in my home. It's like, why the hell are we doing that? Like, there's not people that are going to like, that's not going to drive. It's like, oh shit, they're blacked out. I better get on the road, drive 10 hours to go to the game.
Yeah. Make a 2-day event out of this Vikings game. It's also stupid just given like the amount of money like these days that these families are paying for. Like, if I'm paying $400 a year for like this service, it's like, yeah, I better be able to watch my team every goddamn Sunday. And there's no reason why you can't.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going on. Hopefully that gets figured out. Would be a good thing for all the NFL and all of sports in general. As we just said, hopefully it'll kind of create a cascading effect. Next up, we've got some, I guess, NFL teams staying put and possibly moving. So the Panthers and the Jaguars reached agreements with their cities, Charlotte and Jacksonville, to keep them there for years to come. Both of them signed agreements to like renovate the stadiums and keeps them both there, I think, like past 2030, like 5 or something like that. So, I mean, big things for those cities. The Jaguars were the one that were a little more intriguing. Some people thought there was going to be rumors that they were going to be like the first team to like move overseas and like go to London or some shit. That was never super like realistic, but it was like I guess, if that makes sense. So Interesting to see that they got those done. And obviously just always upgrading the stadium experience and stuff like that is a good thing, I think, for football. Probably the more interesting one, though, that we kind of forgot to mention last episode because it was a little bit probably more relevant then. Maybe it was even last Thursday, and I think we just kind of blanked on it. But the Kansas legislature signed a bill. As most people know, the Chiefs and the Royals want to move downtown.
Yeah.
They want to get into central Kansas City.
They do not own that complex.
Yeah. So they want to go downtown. They want to be more in the center, stuff like that. So the Kansas government, because they're currently in Missouri, both stadiums are in Missouri. The Kansas government signed a legislation to do some type of tax to help bring them downtown. So I think that could definitely be something that is more prominent to keep an eye on. I mean, especially like the Chiefs are obviously, kings of the NFL right now. Definitely an interesting thing. Arrowhead, obviously, really cool stadium. Fans go crazy, stuff like that. So, how does that affect it a little bit? I mean, obviously the fans are still going to show up, but it's like, does it still have that same like design that they have right now that holds in sound so well and just makes that place crazy? I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's another one that should be, again, just a big storyline here as we go forward. Again, dead season NFL, not a whole lot to talk about, but worth noting. So final one, not technically NFL related, but kind of, because Al Michaels, NBC is apparently creating an Al Michaels AI. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, so NBC for the Olympics, they're basically going to do like a recap show each day because Al Michaels has obviously been a big face of the Olympics for years as well. They created an AI of his voice, so he's going to do like a recap basically of each day of the Olympics. But it's not going to be Al Michaels; it's going to be an AI. Let me remind all of you, Al Michaels is alive. He's not. Really, really think that NBC is doing this. I don't know how you feel about it, but I think it's like, I get that he's kind of like retired. Apparently he's like said he's like okay with it, like because they like basically brought the idea like, hey, let's make an AI of you. I think it's really weird.
Very weird. Feels like it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it's like, I get that he's retired and he doesn't want to do a whole lot, like especially like in NFL now. Like, yeah, he cut his games way back, but he's not like dead and he's not like sickly ill or something like that. Like I don't think we need to be creating AI for him.
NBC probably could have just paid him a shit ton of money to just do it, to have him come in and do it.
Yeah, and it's also it's a recap show. Like I'm pretty sure the way it's going to do it, obviously it's AI. Yeah, it's gotten advanced a lot and stuff like that, but it's going to take a lot of work. So I don't think that those recap shows are going to be super long. You're telling me Al Michaels couldn't come on for whatever 10 minutes a day and do a recap of what happened in the Olympics each day?
And he could do it in his basement.
Yeah, exactly. He could literally sit in a little studio like this and set up with a microphone, put a little green screen behind him, and he can do the goddamn recap. Why are we doing that?
Are they like trying to like maybe do like a look how far AI is these days? Like, we have Al Michaels.
Everybody knows how far AI is. We've seen all kinds of crazy shit with AI. I don't think the Olympics need to do that with Al Michaels. It's so weird. I think it's so weird. I wanted to bring that up because I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm going to school for broadcasting and stuff like that. So I think some put us out of a job eventually. But yeah, I think it's very, very weird. The biggest thing about it that just really drives me is that he's alive. If he was dead and they were doing like some tribute thing, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool.
It's a nice touch, but
he's alive and still broadcasts NFL games. Yeah. Why can we not just get the real Al Michaels to come do a recap? I don't get it. All right, so we'll spend a lot of time on that. But last things here before we get out of here is today's Rock Hard Takes. We didn't post a poll last time, but my man, I'll admit defeat. Weezy got me last time on the best sports days. So today we're going to be doing presidential athletes in honor of the presidential debate that happened tonight. So basically what we're going to do with this, which presidents either, I guess, kind of were in some cases or would have been some of the best athletes, I guess, basically in sports, whether that's football, baseball, basketball, stuff like that. We'll just kind of get into it. We'll give you our thoughts on kind of why we picked each guy, what makes him tick, what makes him tick for us. So without further ado, I got first pick last time. A lot of people said I blew it, so that's unfortunate. But Weezy's got first pick this time. Unfortunately, the first pick in this draft is going to be a home run. But Weez, go ahead. You can take your 101 here. That if anybody has any idea, we'll know who it is.
Yeah, I'll take 2-time national championship at the University of Michigan, Gerald Ford. Clear cut.
Yeah, so Gerald Ford, I mean, obviously, for those who don't know, like Weezy just said, he was a 2-time national champion at Michigan, playing center, I believe, for them. And then when Gerald Ford left Michigan, too, it wasn't just like some, like, obviously, yeah, it was a long time ago. It was back in like the 30s, I think, something like that.
33, 34, I think.
So obviously, yeah, it was a long time ago, but the NFL existed then. From what I've seen, like on the internet, he could have definitely just gone to the NFL, but he wanted to go to law school. So he went to law school, but it's like Gerald Ford was like a potential NFL player. Yeah, it was the early NFL, but still fucking wild. He ends up going number 1. And it's a great pick. You're not going to find, anybody else that's probably better than him. So with the second pick, though, I'll try and get somebody out here that can be decent. Dwight Eisenhower. He also played college football again back in the very, very early days. He played linebacker at Army, West Point, back in like the 1910s.
Yeah.
So again, he was an actual college football player. And yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to go with at 2. Number 3, I'm going to go with one of the Bushes. I'm going to go with HW.
Yep.
He played baseball for Yale in the 1940s. He appeared in the first 2 College World Series. So yeah, I guess there's not really a whole lot else to say, but again, obviously just a couple guys there that were legitimate athletes back in the day. And I think they're pretty good picks there for the 2 and 3. So
I'm just going to rattle them both off. I'm going to take my power forward and my shooting guard. We'll have Big Abe down there in the post. We don't know what the hell that guy could have done with a rock in his hand.
Yep.
Would have been a stud. And then I'll go with the smooth lefty, James Harden, also known as Barack Obama.
All right. Yeah, those 2 guys were also on my list. Definitely potential candidates that would have been both very good basketball players. Abe also, I kind of thought of him too. Like, could have been a nasty wide receiver in the NFL too.
Yeah, I think
6'4",
probably a little bit too much stick and bones.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, there's some pretty. I mean, Devontae Smith is thriving, man.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen Big Abe's footwork. Like again, I think he could have, back in that day, maybe like a Dirk situation. So
yeah, I mean, he grew up on like I don't know, was he that much stick and bones though? Because like people say he was kind of built like an ox. Like he was raised on a farm, so like he might have been.
Don't think
like,
he filled the shoes very much. I don't think he was that heavy.
I don't know. Well, I mean, I feel like also nobody was but nobody was that heavy back then though either.
No, I mean you were like thought to like be looked at as like better than other people if you were fat, because I mean you could afford food.
Yeah, kind of crazy. But moving on with things here. Next pick, I'm going to go with the man himself, the great Teddy Roosevelt. He was a great outdoorsman, hell of a hunter. Again, obviously, some of the older picks here, it's like, yeah, we're not going to really have any information on them like playing actual sports. But Teddy Roosevelt, from virtually any story you hear about him, was just a grade A badass. So I'll go with him there with the, what is that, 6th pick, I think.
Yep.
Next up, let's see here. I think I'll go with JFK. JFK grew up rich family. Apparently, I think he was a pretty good swimmer. I think he might have swam for Harvard. So again, actual athletes, and also kind of I feel like a little bit like somewhat bonus points of the JFK is that like he was actually like not like super old and like grossly like out of shape like when he took office. Yeah. I know he had some like illnesses that he struggled with like in his life before obviously he got shot. But I don't know. From what I've seen on my research, he was a solid athlete, and again, was one of the only ones that were actually like probably still somewhat athletic when they took the office. So I'll go with JFK there.
By the way, Abe was 180, 6'4", 180.
Okay,
that guy was.
Maybe he was just lean, dude. Cut.
Might have been. I'm gonna go to George Washington.
Okay, I also had him on the list.
That guy screamed like a UFC cage fighter, like just psychopath. So gonna go to him. And this is where it gets tricky to me. Do I get... No, so this is my last pick.
Mm-hmm.
This is tough. I'm going to... You know what? I need an offensive lineman with Gerald Ford. So I'm going to take my right guard with a big fat-ass Taft.
All right. Sounds good. Big fat-ass Taft goes there.
We'll get him on a little 40-day workout, regiment. Make sure he's watching what he's eating and get the footwork going, and yeah, he's protecting quarterback.
All right, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna complete the family dynasty here.
You're gonna go
with my team.
Bush. Yeah,
I'm gonna get the good little duo here. Got to get the patriotic play. Comes out after 9/11, throws the perfect strike. Obviously that guy had some athleticism in his bones. He was a decent sized dude too. I think he was like probably like 6'1", something like that. So yeah, he'd been a good athlete, and obviously as we just said too, his dad was like a legitimate like good athlete back in the day. At the same time, a lot of these guys that we talk about that played college sports, it's like I'm pretty sure like any guy who like grew up with like a little bit of money in his family that could like eat correctly and like get somewhat time of training, like could just go play like a college sport. So there is that. But George W. Bush, we'll finish it off there. He's going to create the dynamic duo with his father, HW. And yeah, that's going to do it for today's Rock Hard Takes in spirit of the presidential debate with our presidential athletes. So hopefully we'll actually get this one posted, kind of slacked on that after Monday's episode, but we'll try and get this one out here tomorrow. So you guys can vote on who had the better team of the presidential athletes. But that being said, I think that's going to do it for tonight's episode of Rock Hard Ball. Good 10th episode, I thought. Obviously, our chat wasn't, super lively tonight, which happens once in a while. But no worries. I think we still had a really good episode for you guys. Hopefully, you enjoyed a lot of the discussion that we had. I feel like this was probably one of our best episodes in terms of just kind of just straight up discussion between me and Weezy about a lot of the topics. So, yeah, that's going to do it. We'll be back on Monday, and then 4th of July weekend, probably nothing. Might have something in the works, though, for sometime on the 4th of July or somewhere around there. Some type of special episode or video, something like that we might do. But for now, we'll just see you all on Monday. And thanks for watching.